Today, let's get into a story that starts with something unbelievably simple, a burnt-out light bulb, and somehow spirals into one of the most credible and downright chilling ghost stories in the history of aviation, the haunting of Eastern Airlines Flight 401.
You really have to ask yourself, right? How on earth does that happen? Well, the answer connects a really tragic accident to this incredible wave of paranormal sightings. The story doesn't even begin with the disaster, it starts with a tiny mechanical glitch that should have been a total non-issue.
So picture this. It's the night of December 29, 1972. Eastern Airlines Flight 401 is on its way from New York to Miami. The plane itself, a Lockheed L-1011 TriStar, was basically the Ferrari of the skies back then, a real technological marvel. And for pretty much the whole flight, everything was perfectly, boringly normal.
And who's flying the plane? Well, you've got four experienced guys up front. Captain Bob Loft, a seasoned pro with over 30,000 flight hours. He's in command, along with First Officer Bert Stockstill and Flight Engineer Don Rebo. And just hanging out in the jump seat was another off-duty employee, Angelo Donato. So 2 hours into what passengers were calling a wonderfully smooth flight, the crew starts getting ready for their final approach into Miami. And then, as they do, one tiny little light on their control panel just doesn't come on.
It's always the smallest things, isn't it? This one little green light was supposed to tell them, hey, your nose gear is down and locked, you're good to land. But when it stayed dark, the crew suddenly had a problem they absolutely could not ignore.
And this is where the dominoes start to fall. The crew figured, hey, it's probably just a busted bolt, right? So they put the plane on autopilot to circle over the pitch-black Florida Everglades while they sorted it out. But at some point, the captain accidentally bumped the controls, and that tiny nudge quietly knocked the autopilot off, sending this massive jet into a slow, almost imperceptible descent. They got so hyper-focused on that little light bulb, it was like tunnel vision. All four of them were completely absorbed. An altitude alarm did actually chime for a second, but with everyone distracted and nothing but darkness outside, the warning just vanished into the air. No one heard it. And because nobody was paying attention to their altitude, Flight 401 just kept dropping, slowly and silently, out of the sky, until it slammed right into the soft, muddy ground of the Everglades at over 200 miles per hour. The result was just devastating. 99 people lost their lives that night. And that included the three men who had been trying to fix that light: Captain Loft, First Officer Stockstill, and Flight Engineer Rebo. But here's the incredible part. 77 people actually survived. The plane didn't nosedive. It hit the ground at a shallow angle in a soft swamp. That cushioned the impact just enough to save dozens of lives.
It's a miracle, really.
Now, when the investigation was all said and done, the truth was just heartbreaking. The primary cause? Pilot error. The entire crew had become obsessed with a minor problem. The landing gear? It was down and locked the whole time. The problem was exactly what they thought it was in the first place. A simple $2 light bulb had burned out.
Okay, so you think the story ends there, right? A tragic accident, case closed. Well, you'd be wrong. This is where things go from a straightforward aviation tragedy into something else entirely. The story of Flight 401 was nowhere near over.
So, investigators found a bunch of expensive parts in the wreckage that were still in perfect working condition. And to save a buck, Eastern Airlines decided to salvage those components and install them into other identical L-1011 jets in their fleet. And right here, this is where the story splits into two completely different tales. We leave the world of documented facts and NTSB reports, and we enter this 2-year period of eyewitness accounts, strange, unexplainable things that started happening on the very planes carrying parts from the crash. Almost immediately after those salvaged parts were put into other planes, weird things started to happen. It kicked off just 3 months after the crash, and it went on for nearly 2 full years. And the reports were consistent, they were numerous, and they came from everyone, from the ground crew all the way up to the executives. And we're not talking about, a spooky shadow in the corner. This was something else entirely. In one of the most famous incidents, a pilot and his crew saw what looked like another captain just sitting silently in a first-class seat. When the pilot got closer, he recognized the face and just exclaimed, "Oh my God, that's Bob Loft." And right after he said it, the figure just vanished, in front of 9 witnesses. And this is what makes the story so hard to just dismiss, right? Look at who was seeing these things. We're talking seasoned pilots, flight attendants, regular passengers, ground crew, and even a vice president of the company. These are credible people, not folks prone to making things up.
And the reports were all over the map, but they all pointed to the same thing. Both Captain Loft and flight engineer Don Repo were seen again and again. In one crazy instance, Repo's ghost supposedly warned a crew about a real problem with an engine, which they checked, and he was right. Other times, passengers would just scream as a man would appear in the seat next to them and then just disappear. So for 2 years, you have this wave of hauntings. And then in 1974, just like that, it stops. Cold. The big question is, why?
Now, on the record, Eastern Airlines was like, ghosts? That's ridiculous, just rumors. But behind the scenes, they were doing something completely different and very expensive. They gave an order. Find every single salvaged part from Flight 401 and quietly get them off our planes. And get this, the moment those parts were gone, so were the ghosts. Poof! The sightings of Bob Loft and Don Rippo stopped completely. They were never seen again.
So, what are we supposed to make of all this? I mean, could it have just been mass hysteria? You know, a shared delusion among an airline crew that was traumatized by losing their friends? It's definitely a plausible psychological explanation.
But even if you believe that, you're still stuck with one giant nagging question. If it was all in their heads, why would removing perfectly good inanimate machine parts from a fleet of airplanes make the delusion vanish overnight for good? And that unanswered question, right there, is why the ghosts of Flight 401 will always be one of history's most compelling mysteries.